Um, Good afternoon. My name is Jessica Pasadillos. I am the CEO here at the Mexican Heritage Plaza. I wish we were gathering under different circumstances, but we're not, and this is a heavy moment. It is deeply unsettling, especially for those of us in this community where this history lives all around us. First and foremost, we stand with survivors. We believe you. We recognize the courage it takes to come forward, especially after decades of silence, carrying the weight of harm that should never have been yours to bear. And we support your healing in whatever form that takes. Today, I want to say something, not as a CEO, but as a woman. For most of us, this is not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. I think about what my mother endured, what I have endured, and what my daughter may one day face. And I think about the women in San Jose whose stories we may never fully hear, but whose experiences we know are real. That is why this moment matters. This moment forces us to hold two truths at once. The farm workers movement transformed lives. It created a pathway from powerlessness to collective voice. And at the same time, we are confronting firsthand accounts of harm that cannot be ignored or minimized. We cannot build movements for justice while ignoring harm within them. For us here in East San Jose, this is personal. This is Cesar Chavez's neighborhood. His legacy is reflected in our murals, in our public spaces, and in our community memory. That proximity makes this moment more painful, but also more important, because we don't have the luxury of distancing ourselves from it. We have to face it. Movements for justice are not immune from harm. Power, when left unchecked, can be abused, even by those we lift as leaders. And survivors should never have to choose between telling the truth and protecting a movement. We have to be clear. The movement is bigger than any one individual. It was built by a collective, by organizers, by families, by communities, and by women whose leadership has too often gone unnamed and unseen. Women like Dolores Huerta, who carried both the movement and in silence her own pain. What we are seeing is not isolated. It reflects broader systems where power is protected, where silence is expected, and where survivors are too often not believed. We are in a national context where credible accounts of harm against women have not protected individuals from rising to the highest levels of power. That tells us this is not about one person or one movement. It is about what we are willing to tolerate and who we are willing to protect. And that has to change. This is not a moment to step back. This is a moment to lean in, to create space for honest conversations, to educate the next generation of leaders with truth. This is the time to build movements and cultivate a new generation of leaders, leaders who center justice and power in practice. We can honor our history and still tell the truth. And if we are serious about justice, then that truth must include accountability. This is how we build something stronger. Thank you.
Victor Vasquez, Somos Mayfair, here representing Si Se Puede as an organization. The Si Se Puede Collective stands with the survivors who have long carried the harm in silence for far too long. Yes, we believe in you. You deserve better. You deserve healing, accountability, and justice. Yes, the accounts involving Cesar Chavez reminds us that justice movements are not immune from harm. We affirm that many of these movements, like the farm worker movement, are built by people, powered by many women leaders whose leadership and sacrifices must be recognized. Let today be a turning point. This neighborhood is the people's neighborhood. This movement is our movement. This neighborhood is our neighborhood. It doesn't belong to one icon, it belongs to all of us here. We must build movements centering the people first, because it is them that power them, not these idols. And we must also learn from past movements, evaluate them, interrogate them, recreate them, and imagine them for the next generation of leaders so we don't repeat the past mistakes. We must continue to provide intentional spaces to develop the next generation of leaders, grounded in healthy relationships. You see, today's youth, they're calling for these types of spaces that are not only focused on organizing, but also actively cultivating conversations, skills, and practices around accountability, healing, and collective well-being. That is why we must proactively integrate these trainings and spaces in organizing, and it's not optional. It is necessary. Therefore, we must invest in this new generation of leaders to reground them in integrity and justice and truth. If we're serious about building a stronger community, the future of Mayfair, the future of San Jose, the future of our movements cannot solely rely on this legacy by Chavez. We must honor that history of the movement of the farm workers. But the future belongs to the broader movements. We must highlight the promotoras in our neighborhood, the Conferencia de la Raza, United People Arriba, these local movements that have been overshadowed by one voice. And those movements must have lived the stories of all of us here today, or lived experiences, or leadership, and our resistance. Let that guide us in a future that's more just, and a movement that is inclusive and safe for all. Thank you.
Muy buenas tardes, Saúl Ramos, codirector ejecutivo en Somos Mayfair, y también representando al colectivo de Si Se Puede y a las organizaciones hermanas que se unen a esta lucha también. Y en este día nos queremos unir a esta declaración que asumimos con la responsabilidad que este momento requiere. Desde este lugar físicamente y en concreto, donde nace parte fundamental de esta historia, respondemos con claridad y con convicción. Les creemos a las sobrevivientes. Nombrar el daño que sufrieron y el estar del lado de quienes lo han vivido es parte de nuestra responsabilidad como organizaciones que trabajan dentro de la justicia social. El silencio que ha protegido por décadas este daño y este comportamiento ha sido por las estructuras de poder que siguen todavía vivas y penetrando nuestras instituciones y que han protegido a unos y han invisibilizado a otros. Por demasiado tiempo, estas estructuras han condicionado a quien se escucha, han condicionado a quien se le cree y a quien se ignora. Hoy, romper ese silencio también es parte de nuestra responsabilidad. Como instituciones del colectivo enraizadas en esta comunidad del este de San José, reconocemos que este momento aún nos exige más. Nos exige formar una nueva generación de liderazgo, con relaciones sanas, con dignidad, con respeto y con una rendición de cuentas con los valores que nos han inculcado nuestros ancestros. Y esto no es opcional. Es lo que nuestra juventud nos demanda en este momento. Y a la comunidad de trabajadores campesinos queremos decirles algo, que honramos profundamente su lucha y su sacrificio y su legado. Estamos aquí gracias a ustedes. Y son ustedes colectivamente quienes sostienen el espíritu de lucha que aún en estos momentos de crisis nos guía. Debemos de ser claros con nosotros, con nuestra comunidad, que el futuro no se construye alrededor de una sola figura. El futuro, nuestro futuro colectivo, el futuro de nuestros hijos, requiere que centremos el movimiento en una historia colectiva, en nuestras instituciones de confianza, en nuestros jóvenes, en nuestros promotores, en nuestros activistas, en nuestra comunidad de líderes y en ese liderazgo comunitario que tanto hemos fomentado por décadas. Y aquí seguimos, y vamos a seguir, y seguimos adelante con un gran sentido de esperanza, con el compromiso de construir algo mejor, de demostrarles a quienes se aprovechan de estas narrativas destructivas que tenemos la capacidad de asumir responsabilidad, que tenemos la capacidad de exigir responsabilidad y de transformar nuestra propia historia. Muchas gracias.
Good afternoon. My name is Adriana Caldera Barafas, and I have the honor of serving as CEO for YWCA Golden Gate Silicon Valley. We are the largest rape crisis center in Santa Clara County and provide services to San Jose. I stand here today with longtime partners, civic leaders, and all of you holding a very difficult and necessary truth. The allegations of sexual assault and abuse against women and girls that we're here to address today are painful. They are disturbing, and they call on all of us, especially those committed to social and racial justice, to respond with clarity, integrity, and courage. Several of the women bringing their stories to light were children at the time of these crimes. Children. They were entitled to safety. They were entitled to protection. They were entitled to adults and institutions that would believe them and act in their best interest. Instead, they were failed, and they've carried this harm unspoken and unaddressed. First and foremost, we must say plainly, we believe survivors. We believe those who have come forward after years, even decades of silence. We understand that silence is not accidental. It is shaped by fear, power, and by systems that too often protect those who harm and question those who have been harmed. And today we say clearly and without hesitation, we stand with and believe Dolores Huerta and all survivors who have carried these stories for far too long. We thank them for their courage and their truth. As these survivor stories come to light, we are reminded of a truth we cannot ignore. Survivors are often not listened to. Their voices are minimized, dismissed, or ignored, and their trauma compounded. And we know this because we've seen this before. We see it every day. Sexual violence is not about misunderstanding. It's about power and control. And abusers rely on manipulation, intimidation, and the belief that they will not be held accountable. So let us be equally clear about this. Accountability matters. Justice cannot depend on someone's legacy, their influence, or their position in history. Accountability cannot be selective. We can hold complexity, and we can recognize contributions to social movements, and still, at the very same time, be unwavering in our commitment to truth, to survivors, to their healing, and to their desired justice. These are not competing values. They are the very foundation of integrity, and they are at the heart of the services that we provide. To survivors, especially those whose stories are emerging now, we say, we see you, we believe you, and you deserve justice. You deserve to be protected then, and you deserve to be heard now, and you deserve systems that respond with care, dignity, and accountability. And to our broader community, this is a moment of responsibility, a responsibility to listen without defensiveness, to resist the instinct to protect reputations over people, to challenge the systems that have allowed harm to go unaddressed, and to stand firmly on the side of those who have carried these truths for far too long. Because believing in survivors is not just a statement, it is a practice. Accountability is not optional, it is essential. And if we are serious about justice, then we must be serious about both. If you or someone you know needs support, YWCA Golden Gate Silicon Valley is here for you. Our confidential support line is available for survivors of sexual assault and violence and is available 24/7 at 1-800-572-2782. You do not have to navigate this alone. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. Thank you for recognizing the need and the moment. My name is Kulzaria Henderson, and I have the honor of being the Executive Director at Nextdoor Solutions to Domestic Violence. For over 55 years, Nextdoor Solutions has put the needs of survivors and their families first in this community. We have historic and deep roots here on the East Side, and are heartbroken to be here today discussing a legacy tarnished by victimization and abuse of women and girls. Today we gather with a commitment that is both simple and demanding: to put survivors first. To say support survivors is not a slogan, it is a responsibility. It means listening when it is uncomfortable. It means believing when it challenges our assumptions. And it means acting even when the truth complicates the stories we have been taught to honor. The movement of United Farm Workers stands as a powerful chapter in the struggle of dignity, labor rights, and justice. It brought national attention to the exploitation of farm workers and helped secure protections that has changed countless lives to this day. That legacy matters. It deserves recognition. But honoring a movement does not require silence about harm within it. Movements that shape history are not perfect, and those that lead them are not infallible. When allegations of abuse arise, especially involving those in positions of power, we are called to respond with clarity and courage. We must reject the idea that achievements excuse harm or that influence shields accountability. No movement is strengthened by ignoring pain. No legacy is preserved by dismissing those who speak out. At the heart of this moment are women and families, people whose voices have too often been minimized and doubted. Their experiences are not footnotes in history. They are part of it. And if we are committed to justice, we must ensure that they are not erased from the narrative. To believe survivors is not to abandon critical thinking. It is to start from a place of humanity. It is to recognize the immense courage it takes to come forward, especially when doing so means confronting powerful figures and cherished institutions. It is to understand that silence has historically protected harm, not truth. And support goes beyond belief. Support means creating spaces where survivors are safe, respected, and heard. It means offering resources, advocacy, and solidarity. It means standing beside them, not just in moments of public attention, but in the long, often quiet journey towards healing. Accountability, too, must be real. not symbolic. Those who cause harm, particularly those with power and privilege, must be held responsible, not selectively, not only when it's convenient, but consistently and with integrity. Because power should never place someone above accountability, and privilege should never make harm invisible. We are often told to choose between honoring a movement and confronting its flaws. But that is a false choice. We can do both. We can recognize the good that was done while refusing to excuse the harm that occurred. We can hold complexity without losing our moral clarity. In fact, this is how movements grow stronger. When we center survivors, we send the message about what kind of world we are trying to build together. One where dignity is not conditional, where justice is not, again, selective, and where no one is asked to sacrifice their truth for the sake of someone else's legacy. So today, let us recommit to support survivors, not just in words, but in action, to believe them not blindly, but compassionately and with care, and to hold accountable those who harm, especially when they hold power. Because justice is not about protecting the reputations, it's about protecting people. And if we truly honor the spirit of any movement for justice, it must begin and end with that truth. If there are survivors out there that need a space to feel seen and heard, Next Door Solutions and the YWCA are here. Our 24-hour crisis number that we've had for 55 years is 408-279-2962. Or you can simply walk in our doors. An open door can be the start of a process, and an advocate will be there throughout the journey. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Supervisor Betty Young. Thank you for allowing me the space to gather here with you in the heart of my district to be in community and process the revelations that have shaken our community. The histories of Mayfair, East San Jose, and many spaces in District 2 are intertwined with the history of the farm workers movement. I'm here today to join the Cesar Chavez Collective, Next Door Solutions, YWCA, Councilmember Ortiz, and Mayfair community leaders to honor the immense courage of Dolores Huerta, Ana Marguera, and Deborah Rojas for sharing their truths. I acknowledge the strength of all survivors who carry the weight of harm caused at the hands of men, made powerful by the stories we choose to uplift, often at the expense or erasure of women. We can and must do better to protect the most vulnerable, especially in movement and liberation spaces. It is imperative that we demonstrate accountability because our response as a united community must be rooted in our values that we share with the farm workers movement as a whole. So today, moving forward, let us reclaim the narrative. No movement is the result of any one person. Profound change is possible only when coalitions of neighbors, workers, youth, and allies come together in community spaces like this one, La Plaza, the cornerstone of Mayfair. Movements belong to community, to all of us. There's more work to do here in Mayfair and East San Jose, where the history is complex, but the power is unequivocal. I am your partner in this fight. I will walk alongside the collective and partners to ensure that we right the wrongs of history by working together for a safer future for our children, our sisters, our mothers, our allies, our families. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Peter Ortiz. I'm a council member with the city of San Jose, representing District 5, the East Side and Mayfair neighborhoods. What has come to light is deeply painful and disturbing. It is a tragedy that impacts not only those directly involved, but all of us who have long respected the contributions made to support farm worker families. First and foremost, we must center the survivors. To those who have carried this harm for years, often in silence, we see you. We believe you, and you deserve truth, accountability, and healing. Too often, survivors are asked to stay quiet, to protect institutions or legacies. That cannot be the case here. As we've heard from community leaders, silence is often shaped by power and fear, and not by choice. And we have a responsibility to break that cycle. This is inexcusable, and no legacy, no matter how significant, places anyone beyond accountability. At the same time, we will continue to recognize that the farm worker movement is bigger than any one individual. It was built by a collective, by organizers, families, and especially women, whose leadership has too often gone unrecognized. We must continue to honor that broader legacy while being honest about the harm that occurred. Here in San Jose, we are taking swift action. The city has already canceled city-sponsored events tied to the state holiday, and we will be working closely with our community to determine more appropriate and thoughtful ways to honor the values of dignity, justice, and respect for the farm worker community. In addition, I've co-authored, alongside Mayor Mahan, Council Members Campos, Candelas, and Torrijos, a memo we will be bringing forward next week at the Rules Committee meeting to begin a community-driven process to review public spaces, monuments, and sites, including Cesar Chavez Plaza in downtown San Jose, that bear Cesar's name or likeness. This will be an open and inclusive process, one that reflects our values and ensures we are not causing further harm to anyone. This is a difficult moment, but it can also be a turning point, a moment where we choose truth over comfort, accountability over silence, and healing over harm. Thank you so much.
So that ends the program. Our speakers will be available for comment. And that's all. Thank you.